All right, we are going to get started with our webinar on becoming a home inspector, brought to you by American Home Inspectors Training. My name is Chirafisi, and I am a technical training instructor at AHIT. I've been an instructor with AHIT since 2007. I also have a home inspection company in Wisconsin, and I used to be a building inspector for a town for a couple of years. Have some ancillary certifications, which we'll talk about as we go through our webinar. So I would expect this webinar to be approximately about 45 minutes or so. And really with this webinar, why this webinar was put together was to answer a lot of questions that a lot of individuals have that are interested in becoming home inspectors. So we'll be talking about your background, we'll be talking about liability, we'll be talking about reports, tools, pre-licensing education, continuing education. So we're gonna go through all of those different topics as we kind of progress through these slides. And hopefully a lot of your questions are gonna be answered that you had. Of course, if they're not answered, you can always give us a call. At the end of the webinar, I'm going to give you our 800 number to call in and ask any questions regarding like how much the class is. You know, that's a big one. That one's hard to answer online just because it is going to vary depending on your state. Every state has different requirements. So that will, of course, affect the price of the course. You know, is it a live course only? Is it an online? And so forth. So I will give you an 800 number at the end of our webinar. We do have an admissions team member on the call or on our webinar who is also going to be answering some questions that you may have as we progress through the slides. So if there is something that you have a question on, you can always type that into your questions tab, and we will try to answer those. Any questions that maybe aren't answered as we go through the webinar, I will try to answer at the end of the webinar. So everybody is going to be on mute just for background noise, because we do have a lot of people that are attending the webinar. So you won't be able to ask a question via your voice, but you can type in a question via your keyboard. So let's get started on becoming a home inspector. Now I'm going to open up all of these bullets here. So it's estimated that 77% of homes in the United States are inspected. So we'll just round that up to 80%. There's always going to be a few percentage areas that are not inspected. If you have investors that are buying properties, new construction, if you have people that get into bidding wars, or they get into competition, if there's a house for sale and somebody waives their home inspection contingency. So those would fall into the 20% mark, but 80% has been just a consistent percentage really for a very, very long time. 90+% of inspections that are performed are for the buyer of the property. So that is going to account for the majority of your business. There's also inspections that are done for the seller of the property. For example, I'm doing actually a listing inspection tomorrow on a property. Today I did a buyer's inspection. So for my business, it's about 99% of inspections that I perform are for the buyer, but it does depend on the area too that you live in. Some areas, real estate agents really push a pre-listing inspection depending on how the market is. This is a referral-based business. So a lot of our business is coming from referral sources. Now for a home inspector, the number one referral source is going to be the realtor or the real estate agent. Of course, you also have lenders, you may have real estate attorneys, there's home inspectors that do just kind of strictly marketing online. But the referral-based is nice because the person that is referring us has already sold us, so to speak, sold our services, sold us as the inspector to that prospective buyer, because the real estate agent is the one that spends a lot of time with that buyer, showing houses and really building a rapport and gaining trust and all of that. So when they do find a house that they put an offer in on and it's accepted, the client often will say, who should I use? I don't know any home inspectors, so who do you recommend? So that's where the referral base comes in. The average price of a home inspection, it does vary depending on where you live, but the average now is 400 to 600 and above. But again, it all depends on where you live. Typically, regulated urban areas have a higher inspection fee compared to an unregulated, maybe rural area. And most inspectors will add ancillary services to their inspection business. Now, ancillary services are not included in a general home inspection. So let's say our average home inspection is 400. We'll just use a lower number. And you're in an area that has, let's say, radon, where radon testing is common, and termites or wood-destroying insects. So if you're getting calls from prospective clients that say, I would like to book a home inspection, but I also need a radon test, and I also need a wood-destroying insect test or termite, not test, an inspection. So a radon would be a test, the wood-destroying insect or termite would be another inspection. So those would add additional fees. So for example, in my area, I charge $125 for a radon test. So that gets added to our 400. So now we're at 525. So that has just, of course, upped your overall fee. So now if I'm at 525 for the radon and the home inspection, and then they also request the termite, and let's say I charge another $125, now I'm at $650 for one property. So if you don't offer ancillary services, your competitors will. So do you want that money going to somebody else? I know the answer to that question. So if there are ancillary services that are common in your area and it's easy to find out, call a real estate agent and say, what is typically requested by a buyer during a home inspection? And they will absolutely tell you. And the average income of a single inspector is $70,000. Now, $70,000 for a home inspector is part-time. I mean, look at it. If you do, let's say, 200 inspections a year, which is part-time, and you're charging $400, that's $80,000. That does not include your ancillary services. So it's really a great way to supplement an income, or if you want to make a complete career change, you can absolutely do so. Now I'm going to open up all these bullet points. So what about liability? Now, of course, liability is something that follows you no matter what you do in your career. If you're a pilot, if you're a nurse, if you're an accountant, it doesn't matter what you do. There's always going to be some liability. I mean, accountant can screw up numbers. A nurse can, screw up medicine or whatever it might be. So that goes the same as, for a home inspector. So there is liability, but there are things we can do to reduce the liability. So professional training, number one. And it's not just all technical. Of course, we focus on technical training, AHIT as a training provider, but we also focus on communication and report writing. Because at the end of the day, your inspection report is the most important thing that you're carrying. If you want to call it your most important tool, whatever you want to call it, the report is absolutely critical to your business, because if there ever is a dispute on something, the inspection report is what would show up in a courtroom. But going through the professional training, we focus on, of course, how to inspect the house, but like I mentioned, we also focus on communication, report writing. Having the client with you is critical as well. Your liability goes down 75% when the client is with you, because you can show the client what you're looking at. So if you find something that needs attention, you can bring that client over. If they're in the other room, you can just grab them and say, hey, I just wanted to show you this and explain kind of what I'm looking at. You will see this in the inspection report, but looking at a picture is different than if you're looking at it in real life and I'm explaining it to you. So they're watching you do these things. They're watching you flush toilets, run water. If it's safe to do so, get on the roof, fire up the furnace. So all of that. So having the client with you is very important. I would say with my inspection business, probably about 98, 99% of the time the client is with me, because I really insist on it. And it's not just about liability. I want the client to get familiar with their home, where their main water shutoff valves are. If they have a forced air furnace, how to change the filter, where their main electrical panel is, shutting off, the main breaker if in case of an emergency. So they need to know all of this stuff as a homeowner. Having a good inspection agreement. The agreement is just we use the term agreement because it's gentler, but it's a contract. It is a contract between your home inspection company and the client who hired you to perform a home inspection. So it outlines what you are going to do, what standards you're following, and also what you're not going to do. It'll also have things like how much you're charging, how long you're liable. So a good inspection agreement is critical, because it doesn't matter how much insurance you have. If you have a $2 million errors and omissions policy, but your client did not sign the inspection agreement, your insurance company will not cover you. So don't ever perform a home inspection without having a signed inspection agreement. We talked about the report. Proper insurance. At the end of the day, now we always recommend keeping your personal assets, business assets separate from one another. So like an LLC, S Corp, talk to an accountant, talk to an attorney in regards to that. But carrying proper insurance is the best protection that a home inspector can have. Unlimited technical support from AHIT. So and it's not just while you're a student, you can call us anytime if you have questions on a home inspection. If you have any marketing questions, we have 4 instructors that are on call all the time. Myself, Steve, Jim, and John. We're the only training company in the country that actually has actual home inspectors on call that will answer your questions when you call in. So again, kind of sum that up. There's a lot of things you can do to reduce your liability. Kind of the main ones are what you see right here. So home inspection career benefits. Now, I had mentioned if you want to supplement income, you can absolutely do it part-time. Maybe you want to make just a career change and do it full-time. You absolutely can do that as well. You choose the hours that you want to work. So for example, I'm going away for the weekend, this weekend, and people called for inspections, and I said, I can't do it this weekend, but I can, do it early next week. And again, that's where the referral source comes in, because the referral source has sold you to that client. So that client wants to work with you. So they will typically work around your schedule. Most of our graduates go on to run their own home inspection business. If you want to work for an already established company, you can do so as well. We have a lot of companies looking for our graduates. Maybe you want to buy a home inspection franchise. There's home inspection franchises out there as well. Another nice benefit is if you decide to move, you can still practice. Now, you may be moving from, let's say, an unregulated state to a regulated state, but we can, of course, help you with that, because our pre-licensing education is going to be approved wherever you're going to go to practice home inspections. But you may have to, again, take some additional educational requirements. You may have to take the National Home Inspectors exam or a state-specific exam. College degree is not required. If you have a college degree, great. If you don't stress, don't worry. Typically, a regulated state, the minimum requirement would be a high school diploma. And then, of course, if that state has any home inspection education requirements. And startup expenses are extremely low compared to other businesses. You can start seeing your return on investment immediately. I mean, if you do, let's say, 10 home inspections in a week and you're charging $400, take out the ancillary services, you've made $4,000. So That pays for a lot of your stuff just right off the bat compared to other businesses. We don't have the overhead is extremely just low. We don't have inventory that we have to keep track of. We don't have any of that stuff. We're providing a service to people. Now, licensing requirements. So if your state requires licensing, of course, go with a school that meets all of the education requirements. So approximately 36, maybe 37 states have some sort of licensing or regulation requirements. And it's going to depend on where you live in regards to, of course, what the state requires. Some states will only accept live training. Some states will only accept distance learning. And then some states have a combination of distance learning and live training. For example, Illinois. Does my state require an exam? Is it a state-specific exam, or is it the National Home Inspector's exam? So out of those 36, 37 states, I want to say like 36 or 37 of them require the National Home Inspector's exam, or that is going to be one of the exam options. That is the exam if it is an option for you. So for example, in Florida gives you the option to take the InterNACHI exam, the National Home Inspector's exam, and the FABI exam, which is the Florida Association of Building Inspectors. I would encourage you to take the National Home Inspector's exam, because that is the only exam that would follow you if you decided to go to another state. The InterNACHI exam is not going to follow you, and the FABI exam won't follow you. So if you went from, let's say, Florida to Wisconsin, again, why you'd want to do that, I don't know. It's super cold here right now. The national exam, if you took it in Florida, would follow you to Wisconsin. So for example, we'll kind of reverse that. I had my Florida home inspector license because, again, I didn't have to take the national exam again because there's reciprocity with that exam. So we do prepare you for that. Does my state require me to do ride-along inspections? Some states do. Arizona, Connecticut, Massachusetts, for example. Those are just to name a few that will require you to do a certain amount of ride-along inspections. Does my state have specific standards of practice, or can I use a national association? So the standards of practice are minimum requirements that home inspectors follow. So for example, if I have like plumbing, the standards say that I have to flush every toilet. I have to operate every faucet, like inside the house, like in a bathroom, a kitchen, and so forth. Like with outlets, I have to check a representative number of outlets. Representative number would be 1 per room, even if there's 10 outlets in that room. So again, they're minimum requirements. Your state may have, specific standards, or the national association such as AHIT, which is the American Society of Home Inspectors. They kind of have really set a foundation for the standards of practice across the country. The states that have some sort of regulation or licensing will use one form or another of the AHIT standards. And then, are there specific insurance requirements? Again, some states require you to carry insurance. Some states don't require you to carry insurance. But if you call into our office, and again, I'll give you that 800 number at the end of this webinar, they can answer those state-specific questions for you. Now, what if I live in a state that does not regulate or license inspectors? Why should I go through training? I've been a contractor for 30 years and I know how a house is built. What I would say to that from training people that are, from the trades is that's how it started years ago. Somebody from the trades, like a contractor, would show up at the end of a work day, and they would walk around a property with a notepad and they would just write comments. They weren't following any standards of practice, but the comments were also typically, when you look at it from an electrician, a plumber, a contractor, they're used to dealing with code. If you call an electrician to have something installed, he's going to install it, or she is going to install it up to the latest electrical code that is used in that area. From a home inspection standpoint, we're inspecting houses that are 100+ years old, that are grandfathered in. So what we're really looking for are safety issues, things that can be very costly to the home buyer. Plus, real estate agents, they want to work with individuals that have good technical skills, but also have good people and communication skills. So that's where we come in. We can differentiate you from your competitors that don't have any sort of formal training. I've never taught a class where a contractor walked out and said, I did not know that, or I'd learned so much. Because again, it's wearing a different hat when you're a home inspector. It's kind of looking at it in a different kind of point of view. Now, if you are in a regulated licensed state, that requires, let's say, a license, or you have to follow some sort of regulation. Often those states will have continuing education requirements, but it is going to depend on where you live. Now, I'm in a state that is, we don't, in Wisconsin, it's not a licensed state. Our home inspectors here are registered. So we register with the state. There are no educational requirements here, but we have to take 2 exams. One exam is done at home, online. The other is the National Home Inspectors exam. So we don't have any pre-licensing education requirements, but we have 40 hours of continuing education hours that we have to complete every 2 years. So it is going to depend on where you live. Some states have an annual renewal requirement. And getting CE or continuing education hours is very easy. There's Zoom, there's seminars, there's online webinars. There's a lot of different ways to get continuing education. We do have a library. I always recommend trying to get, if you can, trying to attend like live or Zoom continuing education classes, because they'll bring in, like if it's an AHIT chapter, they will actually bring in specialists like an electrician or a chimney sweep or a plumber or a basement contractor. So to get continuing education, you want to learn something, right? Online stuff can be like anything. It can be a little bit challenging in terms of keeping your attention. So if you get to a live seminar, or if you can do something Zoom wise where there's a live speaker, that's what I would recommend you do, because those are really good for education. Now, our training. Now, this is actually, I'm in that gray sweater you see right there. This was a class that I was teaching in Appleton, Wisconsin. And we had students, we were in a basement here, and we were going through the inspection, and I was pointing out things that they needed to be looking for, that they needed to be reporting on, and so forth. So live training is kind of the Cadillac of training. If you can attend one of our live training seminars or courses, I highly, highly recommend it, because you get to go out in the field. Like here, we were in the basement, we were on the roof, we were looking at the furnace, the electrical panel. So you really got a lot of hands-on training, which was super beneficial to any group. Now, your background. It does not matter what your background is. I did not come from a construction background. When I was interested in becoming a home inspector, I had people tell me that, you know what, you don't have a construction background, so you can't do this. I wanted to do it, so I did it. I had to study probably harder than somebody that had a construction background, because I didn't have that technical knowledge, but I had the people skills and I had the communication skills, which the people skills and the communication skills are more difficult to learn than the technical skills. I've not met anybody on this webinar, but I guarantee that I could teach every single person on this webinar how to perform a technical home inspection. What would be a little bit more challenging would be the people communication skills, because if you don't like people, this is not really the career path that you should take if you don't like people, because we are dealing with people all the time, all day, every day. And we're dealing with emotional people, first-time home buyers that are emotional. So it doesn't matter what your background is. We're seeing a lot of, let's say from 2007 to 2022, I have seen a complete 180 in regards to the people that are coming through our training courses. The last class that I taught in Wisconsin, which was about a week ago, I didn't have any contractors in my class. I had IT specialists, I had military, I had, I think I had a chef, I had a dental hygienist. So it does not matter what you do. If you want to do this, we'll help you get to where you want to be. Now, what we're going to teach you, what you're going to learn, and this was outside in our Wisconsin location. So you're going to learn the basic kind of, the standards are outlined here. So all these bullet points that you see, these are from the standards of practice. So we're going to go through structure, exteriors, roofing, electrical, plumbing, heating and cooling, interiors, insulation and ventilation, fireplaces, and solid fuel burning appliances. Now, you don't have to be a code inspector. Knowing what kind of the accepted practices are, of course, is going to be beneficial, such as handrail height, steps, treads, risers, things like that are definitely going to be beneficial to you. So we're going to learn, or you're going to learn all of that when you go through our training course. And then we also add, for the individuals that want to start their own home inspection business, we add our business and marketing piece. Now, what can you inspect? Now, most standards are written for 1 to 4 dwelling units. Indiana, for example, is 1 to 5 dwelling units. So what that means is, if you are in a regulated state and their standards say 1 to 4 dwelling units, if somebody called you and said, I'm buying a single family residential home, you would need to be either registered or you would need a license to inspect that house. Now, this isn't going to make a lot of sense, what I'm about to tell you, but just trust me on this. Now, if somebody called you in a regulated state, so I'll just use, again, I'm in Wisconsin, so Wisconsin says 1 to 4 dwelling units for our standards. So I would need to be registered to inspect a property, single family. But if somebody called me today, and let's say I was not registered, and said, I'm buying an 8-unit building and I need you to inspect it, I could legally go out today and inspect that building because it's over 4 units. So commercial is not regulated or licensed. So you can do residential, you can do new construction. If you're going to do new construction, just make sure that you are familiar with the building codes that are being used in your area. Light commercial properties, I've been doing more commercial properties lately, which is great because commercial inspections, they pay more. If you do a large building, it's going to pay significantly more than one single family residential home would. So that might be something down the road that you add to your overall business. And then don't forget about our ancillary services. So again, that would include radon, mold, termite, energy audits, water testing, well testing, sewer scope. That is all considered an add-on. And we do offer an inspecting commercial online course. So for the individuals that want to get into the commercial, maybe your background is commercial, you can absolutely do so. There are a set of standards that we teach in regards to our commercial course, which they do differ from, let's say, the AHIT standards. Now, how does the training work? So in addition to the technical aspects of performing a home inspection, we cover report writing, business and marketing. Now, again, live training is going to be, from what I have seen, and I went through the live training in 2021, or not 2021, 2001. I went through the live training course. And I always encourage that. It's not because I teach that live training or one of the live training courses. It's just the hands-on. You can't beat that. So it is going to vary depending on where you live in terms of how many days of training. Our live training does consist of some classroom training as well as field training. Our Ohio class, which is fantastic, you get to go on 10 actual inspections. And I taught a Ohio class end of last year, and it was amazing the progress that students made from day 1 to the last day. It was night and day on how much they progressed and how much they had improved. The distance learning is a go at your own pace course. Fantastic course. If you can't get away, if you can't attend one of our live training courses, then distance learning is going to be your second best option. There's a lot of fantastic information in it. Even with the live training, we do include our distance learning course. So you'll get all that information so you're not missing out on anything from the online course. And then our hybrid course combines our distance learning and our live training. Again, that is going to depend on the state that you live in, because if it's a state that will only accept live training, again, we'll still give you the distance learning course, but you don't technically have to complete it. So hybrid course is very, very popular. A lot of states will accept the hybrid kind of model. Now, what materials are included? So I'll open up all these here. So we include our practical guide to home inspection. So that is a book that covers all of the technical topics that are in the standards of practice. We include our marketing and operating a profitable home inspection business. So that is going to cover the business aspect of starting your own home inspection company. If you live in a state that requires the National Home Inspectors exam, we do include 2 NHIE, National Home Inspector Exam manuals. We also have a new course, which I'll talk about in a little bit here. It is our exam prep course that will prepare you to pass the National Home Inspectors exam. We include a sample paper report for practice. In the real world, meaning on a fee-paid home inspection, you would use a digital report. We include just a basic GFCI tester. We'll talk about some of the other tools that home inspectors use. And then you have unlimited technical support from AHIT. Remember, it's not just while you're a student. Of course, that goes into play as soon as you're a student, but it's also after you graduate. So I'll open these up here and then I'll discuss some of these. Oh, went a little too far. So a good rechargeable flashlight is very important because you're going to be in dark locations like an attic, a basement, a crawl space. So you really need something that's reliable and is going to really light up that area. So a good rechargeable flashlight is recommended. A 17-foot multi-position ladder. Some home inspectors will carry, extension ladders and of different heights and everything else. So that's up to you. For 20 years, I've been using the same ladder. I use a 17-foot multi-position ladder. Now, if I can't get on that roof, there's options. You can view the roof from the ground with binoculars. Some people will use a drone. What I use, I actually just got it today, but for 20 years, I was using binoculars if I couldn't get up on the roof. Now I bought a monocular. It's made by Canon, where it has, just crazy zoom on it, and it's a camera. So I can take pictures, I can zoom in and I can take digital pictures and I can insert those pictures into my report. A water pressure gauge. And by the way, let me just clarify with that ladder. There aren't any standards of practice that say you have to get on a roof, just so you know. A water pressure gauge is optional. The water pressure gauge would be screwed on to, let's say, a hose bib or a laundry faucet or a hose faucet. And then you turn it on and that will tell you what the water pressure is coming out of the faucet. So if it's above 80 PSI, then we would recommend a qualified plumbing contractor. A non-invasive moisture meter. So a non-invasive moisture meter, there's also an invasive. An invasive has pins on it. Home inspectors should not be using anything that causes damage. So a non-invasive moisture meter, again, is optional, not required by the standards. But if there's a moisture stain on the wall or a ceiling, the client and the realtor are going to want to know if it's active or not. And this device will tell us if it is. If I don't see a moisture stain on a wall or ceiling, I don't use this device. Like my inspection this morning or this afternoon, I didn't see any moisture staining anywhere inside this house, so that moisture meter did not leave my pouch. A voltage indicator. Voltage indicator is used like if you're in an attic. I inspected a house the other day from 1870, and in the attic there was knob and tube wiring. I wanted to confirm if that knob and tube wiring was still being used, and that voltage indicator, voltage sniffer, told me that it was not being used. There was no power to it. A 3-prong tester with a GFCI button. Any standards that you follow will actually require you to test GFCI receptacles. So you'll have a bunch of those. A combustible gas detector is also an optional piece of equipment. For about 17 years, I used a combustible gas detector. I don't carry one anymore. I'm not required to. When you start using equipment like that, it becomes what they call, there's a definition, technically exhaustive, which means you're starting to use, like, you're starting to do calculations, you're starting to use specialized equipment, and that's not in the scope of a home inspection. Now, again, there's nothing that says you can't do it. I just choose for my business not to do it. So the AHIT Advantage, I'll open these up here. Our mission is to provide you with industry-leading home inspection training and support, helping you to realize your full potential in the home inspection industry. We have a lot of, as you can see here, a lot of live training locations across the US. We include our business and marketing. You get to perform actual home inspections during our live training. We are an approved pre-licensing and continuing education provider. We work with other schools, other companies to offer certification for these ancillary services that you see here. So radon, wood destroying insects or organisms, energy audits, mold. So we work with companies that will provide you that certification that you'll need to actually be qualified to go out and perform a home inspection. We have instructors on call 7 days a week. We're the only training school in the country that can say that. We've also been around since 1993. I'll open up these other ones here. We've trained over, that number now is over 60,000 home inspectors. There's a lot of home inspection schools that have just been popping up lately because more people are getting into home inspections. And I'll have a few slides coming up here with questions that if you are looking at different home inspection training providers, that you should ask them. And then we have the latest books in the industry, and our Wisconsin location is approved to accept GI Bill benefits. So military, use those benefits. You definitely earn them. Now, professional reports. Home inspectors should be using a digital inspection report when they're out in the field. We have partnered with a company called Home Inspector Pro to basically provide our inspection reports. So they are still an independent company. AHIT does not own them. When you look online, you'll see that there's Home Inspector Pro. There's, of course, other reporting software or companies out there, but we looked at all of them and we went with Home Inspector Pro. One of the biggest reasons, as you know, it's like with Amazon. So Amazon's convenient, right? But one of the biggest things with Amazon is their customer service. If you have any issues, they will make it right. And Home Inspector Pro's customer service is hands down the best in the industry. I've not seen anything even close to their customer service. So we do offer you a discount on their reporting system once you complete your training or once you go through our training course. Now, AHIT exam prep. So we did come out recently with a new product called the AHIT exam prep, and that product is going to prepare you to pass the National Home Inspectors exam or any state exam the first time. It's not an exam like the NHIE, the National Home Inspectors exam. That's not an exam that you want to continue to pay for or to fail, and I should say pay for, because if you fail it, you have to pay again, and you don't want to do that. So unlike other exam prep tools, says AHIT delivers more than just a single readiness score. Practice mode helps you quickly learn concepts and the why behind each question. The exam mode gives you a 2-hour time limit. 200 randomized questions like the real exam. The real exam is actually 4 hours. It won't take you 4 hours to complete the or to finish the NHIE exam, but it is 4 hours and it's 200 questions. Built-in exam logic automatically gives you the right number of questions for each topic, like structure, electrical, heating and cooling, roofing, structure. So it's broken down kind of the way that the national exam is. And our 800 question test bank provides fresh set of questions with each new practice exam. So if you go through that, if you go through our training course, you should have no problem passing that exam. And then it says build your own exam or quick review launches questions in your challenging topic areas. So we will prepare you for that. Now, you can take screenshots of this if you want to take your phone, or if you want to do a print screen on this. So these are questions to ask other home inspection training schools. Now, of course, we hope you go with AHIT, but if you're looking at other schools, these are some questions to ask. So how long have you been in business? How many home inspectors have you trained? Do you offer business and marketing training as part of your curriculum? Does your course help with report writing? How many live training locations do you have across the United States? Do you provide physical books or just PowerPoint slides? So that's something a lot of our competitors, and I'm not going to throw any names out, but a lot of our competitors will give you just PowerPoint slides, because it's, when you see something that throws in everything, when they say we give you radon certification, we give you mold certification, we give you drone, drone preparation to pass the 107 FAA exam, all that, for let's say $700. Those add-ons are not going to lead to certification. I can tell you that because our radon course is not included with our training because it's a $200 course, but it does lead to NRPP certification. It'll prepare you for that, and that is the only relevant one in the country. There is the NRSB as well, but for a state, like if you live in Minnesota, they will only accept either the NRSB or the NRPP. So you have to prepare for that. They're not just going to say, oh, you found something online, the PowerPoint slide, so you're good. You're going to have to go through something that actually follows, let's say, the NRPP outline. So just be aware of that. I don't like when people get screwed over in regards to, they see a deal and they're like, we all want to save money. Who doesn't? But when you see something where everything is thrown in and the price is incredibly low, there's usually something wrong with it. And that's from my experience. And do you have full-time experienced home inspectors on call to answer questions 7 days a week? I know our major competitors do not. Does your course prepare me to pass the NHIE exam? If so, how? Do you offer lifetime support to your graduates that covers technical and marketing questions? Do you offer quality reporting software? So HIP is the largest home inspection, meaning when I say the largest, they have the most users of home inspection software in the world. Are you affiliated with colleges, universities, and real estate companies for training? A lot of our training is held at colleges or real estate offices. Are you approved to teach pre-licensing and continuing education courses in the states where I want to inspect? We're approved wherever you want to become a home inspector or wherever you want to inspect, we can help you with that. Will the add-on courses, such as radon, mold, energy audits that you have lead to a certification? Or are they just PDFs from another source? A lot of information you can get from like the EPA. So if they're just sending you like radon information from the EPA, it's helpful, but it's not going to prepare you for the NRPP exam. So we are getting near the end here. So these are some websites that you can go to learn more about AHIT. So ahit.com, and then that will take you you can navigate throughout Now here's our admissions number. So if you want, you can actually call this number tonight. If you have additional questions like how much, when's the next training location, and so forth, I would recommend that you give our admissions team a call. You can also email them, but if you call 800-441-9411, I know it says Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Central Time, but for these webinars, they are joining us to answer questions that you may have.